Power Talks met Janneke Stielstra, aflevering 37. Hi, my name is Janneke Stielstra and I'm owner of the Academy of Online Succes. The place to be to build a business and life of your dreams. Go to jannekestielstra.nl. In this Power Talk, I will interview inspiring and successful entrepreneurs, opinion leaders, best-selling authors and other people who will make a difference in this world. Download my free ebook now, in which I share the 7 habits of successful entrepreneurs with you. Go to jannekestielstra.nl to download the ebook right away. Today, I will speaking with a miracle morning guest. He knows no excuses and throws himself out of bed every morning around 5 a.m. I managed to invite none other than Hal Elrod for you. He's a Hall of Fame business achiever, #1 best-selling author of The Miracle Morning. The not-so-obvious secret to guarantee to transform your life before 8 a.m. He's one of America's top success coaches, a podcaster, an ultra-marathon runner and a great husband and father. He also technically died 3 times, nearly lost his leg, suffers extreme financial tragedy. Most important today, we're gonna learn what it takes to overcome the worst and how you set yourself up to the best, to overcome procrastination, set and achieve big goals and finally live the life you deserve. In short, today you learn how to take life head on. Thank you so much, Hal, to join this show. Are you ready?
I am ready, and thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor.
So this is really cool. I think you're the first show you have your Dutch podcast today, or not? Maybe
No, yeah, this is my first Dutch podcast. Absolutely.
And this is my second English broadcast, so I'm a little bit nervous, but no worries. Hey, could you tell a little bit more about your background? You died technically 3 times. And you're still alive. What happened?
Yeah, I'm back. So I was driving home from a conference one night when my car was hit head-on by a drunk driver at 70 miles per hour, which I think is like 113 kilometers per hour, head-on by this drunk driver. And my car bounced off of the drunk driver and it went spinning across traffic, and a second vehicle crashed into my driver's side door at roughly the same speed of 70 miles per hour or 113 kilometers per hour, and it crushed the left side of my body instantaneously. I broke 11 bones, and I began losing a lot of blood. And when the paramedics it took them an hour, the rescue crew, it took an hour for the fire department to cut the roof off of my car and pull me out. And when they did, I had lost so much blood that I actually died, and I was clinically dead for approximately 6 minutes on the side of the freeway while the rescue crews saved my life, took me to the hospital. I underwent emergency surgery. I was in a coma for 6 days, and during those 6 days, I died twice more. I flatlined twice more and came out of the coma to face this unimaginable reality. You know, I woke up in the hospital not knowing how I got there, and being told that I would never walk again, and I had permanent brain damage, and I had all these broken bones, and it was a very difficult reality to face. And I actually, kind of surprisingly, I applied a strategy that I had learned in my sales training a year before called the 5-minute rule, which states it's okay to be negative when things go wrong, but not for more than 5 minutes. And granted, I was taught the strategy for much milder adversity. It wasn't, for horrific car accidents, but I realized one lesson that we can all learn. I realized I can't change what happened to me, but I get to choose how I respond to it. I get to choose if I feel sorry for myself, and I'm depressed, or if I'm grateful that I'm still alive, and everything that I want for my future that is in my control, that's what I'm going to focus on, and I did. And 2 weeks later, the doctors came in with x-rays, and they said, we don't know how to explain this, but your body is healing so rapidly that we're going to let you take your first step tomorrow in therapy. And so, Janneke, it went from never walking again to 3 weeks after the crash and after I was found dead, I was able to take my first step, and the rest is kind of history, as they say.
Yeah, I learn a lot about the brain. How did you manage to live with the brain damage?
So, I mean, I suffer from the brain damage that I have affects my judgment and it affects my short-term memory. And so, in fact, ironically, the part of my brain that's damaged is the same part of the brain that alcohol affects when you drink alcohol. So that's why people, when they drink alcohol, they don't have very good judgment and they don't have a very good short-term memory. And so, you know, some of my friends will tell you, they joke, it's like I'm drunk all the time. They say I say things that are, you know, a little bit inappropriate without realizing it, and of course my memory is not so great. But I kind of joke back. I say, look, I said, you know, your memory is just as bad as mine. It's just that I have a better excuse than you do.
And a good story as well.
So, exactly, and I've used my as far as the brain damage, I've used affirmations and exercise and, you know, different vehicles for to deal with that in the last ever since the car accident, so that it can be the best that it can possibly be. And even though it's not perfect, we've all got our own, you know, challenges, and that just happens to be mine.
Yeah, I asked in a Facebook group from Dutch Miracle Morning practitioners, asked them, do you have some questions for you? And one of the people in the group, they asked, how could you explain more about the affirmation thing? But could you tell more about that?
Yeah, in fact, I love that you asked me that question, because it's one of the topics that I am most passionate about within the Miracle Morning. You know, the Miracle Morning is made up of 6 practices that people do in the morning, and these 6 practices are organized into an acronym, which is SAVERS. It's the savers, right?
Yes.
The lifesavers. And I'll run through them real quickly. So S is for silence. The first S is for silence, which is you know, meditation, prayer, or a combination of both of those for a lot of people. The A is for affirmations, which we'll come back to here. The V is for visualization. The E is for exercise. The R is for reading. And the final S is for scribing, which is...
Yeah, that was a really good one.
Yeah. And I owe my wife, by the way, for the acronym. I was writing the book one day, and I was frustrated trying to figure out how to organize all the information. She goes, why don't you get a thesaurus and, you know, a dictionary that allows you to find words that have the same meaning as other words, synonyms? And I went, that's a brilliant idea. And, you know, so I owe that to her. But of all the savers, sometimes I get asked, do you have a favorite amongst them? Because essentially these are the 6 most timeless, powerful, proven, effective personal development practices known to humanity, and they've, you know, people have used them for centuries to achieve their full potential. And what's unique about the savers and the Miracle Morning is that most people that are very successful swear by at least one of these practices, but before the Miracle Morning, you know, no one, to my knowledge, was doing all 6 of these best, you know, ancient practices, all of them. If you do one of them, it can change your life, but you do all 6, it really accelerates your improvement in your life beyond what you might even believe is possible. And so of all the 6 practices, affirmations are my favorite. And the way that affirmations have been taught, so first let me define. An affirmation is it's simply a statement that reflects, it really is just a statement. So if you say, I'm so stupid, that's an affirmation, right? So even if you don't say it out loud, if you're saying that or thinking that to yourself, you're affirming it, right? So what the reality is, we all use affirmations every day, but most of us are not intentional about the affirmations that we use. We just have our negative self-talk repeating in our head, and it's continuously programming us to be unhappy and unhealthy and accept less for our lives than we really want. Every limiting belief that we have, for example, is an affirmation. We're affirming a limiting belief. So when I learned about this, I realized that one of the most important things that we can do in our lives is to intentionally design affirmations that will program our mind, both our conscious and our subconscious mind, with the beliefs and the confidence and the focus that we need to achieve everything that we want for our lives. Now, the way that affirmations have been taught by, many, I guess you'd call them self-help gurus over the, many, many years or decades, I don't believe is optimally effective. And it's caused a lot of people to, that have maybe tried affirmations the old way they were taught and gone, nah, these don't work for me. They don't resonate. And the way they were taught is basically it's this form of kind of lying to yourself where, these experts would say, if you want to be a millionaire, just tell yourself, I am a millionaire, and say it over and over and over again until you believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the problem is, if you're affirming something that's not true, if you're saying I am a millionaire, but you're nowhere near a millionaire, then you're fighting reality. You're lying to yourself, hoping that you'll trick yourself into believing something that you may want to be true, but it's not true. So the way that I teach affirmations in the Miracle Morning are my affirmations, and the way I believe that to be effective, they need to be rooted in truth. So instead of saying I am a millionaire when that's not true, say I'm committed to becoming a millionaire.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of saying I weigh blank pounds because that's your ideal weight, say I'm committed to weighing blank pounds. So you start with a commitment and you affirm a commitment that is rooted in truth so your subconscious doesn't fight you and tell you that it's not true. That's the first part. The second part is once you affirm what you want, what you're committed to, being or having or doing, then it's the why. You've got to be really clear, why is that important to you? Why? What are the benefits of that goal? So, for example, for me, it might be I'm committed to becoming a millionaire so that I can provide financial freedom for my wife and our 2 children, right? Very specific, and it's the why that drives us through the challenges and the obstacles and the self-doubt and the fear. When your why is big enough, right, then the how reveals itself. And then third is the how. It's the, well, what do you need to do to make sure that you achieve that result? So I'm committed to become a millionaire so I can provide financial freedom for my family. Therefore, I will, wake up 1 hour earlier, I'll work extra, or I'll do this, or I'll, whatever the thing is for you. Like when I was in sales, for example, I would affirm my commitment to my goal and why it was important. But then the how was based on the number of phone calls that I made. I knew that if I made 20 phone calls a day, I would sell, X amount of dollars of our product. But if I doubled the number of phone calls, I would
then the money is also, yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I was able to quantify and affirm which actions or activities I needed to commit to doing. And then last but not least is the win. So once you're clear on what you're committed to, why it's important to you, what you need to do to accomplish it, then it's when will you take those actions or implement those activities. So for me it was, make 20 calls a day or 40 calls a day every day from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. and from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m., right? So now you're affirming, you're using affirmations that are rooted in truth, that are based on what's deeply important to you, and that are actionable, right? And so now your affirmations change your behavior, which is what gets you the results that you want in your life.
Could you share one of your affirmations you write down this morning?
Yeah, and I don't write new affirmations every day. I have a list of affirmations that I am always editing. So it's actually, I put them in my phone in a note. That way, when I'm reading an affirmation, if it doesn't quite resonate, or if I learn something new that I want to add to my affirmations, or if I have a realization during my meditation about how, something that I'm not doing but I want to be doing, I'm always updating my affirmations every day. But I will share with you, Janneke, one of my foundational, fundamental affirmations that I apply every day. And it is, I am just as worthy, deserving, and capable of achieving everything I want in my life as any other person on earth, and I will prove it today with my actions. I'll say that again, and then I'm going to teach you how to customize it. I am just as worthy, deserving, and capable of achieving everything I want in my life as any other person on earth, and I will prove that today with my actions. Now, this affirmation is a formula, so it's really, I am just as worthy, deserving, and capable of blank. So whatever goal or result you want to accomplish or achieve, you can get very specific and use this affirmation to affirm that you're as worthy and deserving and capable of achieving, a very specific result. It could be a loving relationship. It could be being the best mother or father, you can possibly be. And then when you get to the last part of the affirmation that says, and I will prove it today with my actions, I would actually recommend you get specific. Say, I will prove it today by doing blank, right? So what's the actual action you're going to follow through with that day? Yeah.
Wow,
so that's
great.
it.
Yeah. Do you have times that when you press to the snooze button?
It's rare. So for me, but I mean, I definitely do. Let's say, on average once a week. In fact, I could actually look. There's an app that I use on my phone that I can highly recommend to anyone listening. It's called Way of Life, and Way of Life allows you to identify habits that you want to implement, and then you get to track every day. If you do the habit, you get to click yes, and it lights up green and stays green. And then if you don't do it, you click no, and it shows red, and so you have a visual representation of how you're doing on your habits, and it actually tracks how many days in a row you've done them. So this week, for the last 5 days, I did not hit the snooze button at all. Last week, I hit it twice. And the week before that, to be very transparent, I was traveling, and when I travel sometimes, I get out of my routine, and the week before that, I hit it 6 out of 7 times. And I can give everybody a tip on how to avoid that. Learn from my mistakes, which are so in the Miracle Morning book, there's an entire chapter. It's a short chapter, but it might be the most important in the book, and it is how to overcome the snooze button, how to not hit the snooze button. And because what I found is that over 70% of the people that do the Miracle Morning, and I mean there are hundreds of thousands of people that do their Miracle Morning. They wake up and do it every morning, but over 72% of them, when I surveyed them about a year ago, had never considered themselves a morning person. So if you're listening to this right now and you're thinking, well, I've tried to be a morning person, it doesn't work for me, join the club. It's actually, that's a big part of what the Miracle Morning, the book has done for people.
It's funny that you say this. I read your book, and this week I start with the Miracle Morning, and the first 2 days it was quite fun, and the third day I thought, oh my God, this is not the way I want to do it. And today it was really great. I thought, wow, I can write and I can read and I can run, and it was a really cool morning, and I was really I like to start my day. It's really early, but yeah, I was wondering if it's is it getting easier or Yeah, so there's another chapter in the book called From Unbearable to Unstoppable, and it's how to change any habit in 30 days. And that really is it teaches that and I've done a lot of research on changing habits, and there's different takes on how long it takes and different opinions. But what I found is synthesizing the best research and advice that I could find, and also testing it myself and sharing it with my clients and having them test it. It was this 30-day approach where the first 10 days, phase 1 is days 1 through 10, is what I call the unbearable phase. Where, that's true.
And that's what you're encountering, where, when you're trying to change a habit, the first few days, like your body, our bodies, our minds, our emotions, they're addicted to our current behavior. We've been doing whatever we've done for a long time. We're programmed at a very deep level to continue doing that. We tend to do the same thing. We shower the same way every day. We brush our teeth the same way, right? We just have the same behaviors that repeat. So when you try to change a habit, your body rejects it. It goes, no, what are you doing to me? This isn't, we don't wake up early.
And it's also really hard working for your brain. It's, that's also a really tough one.
Yeah. So the first 10 days are what I call the unbearable phase, and it can feel unbearable at times, but you have to realize that, if something, this is true for changing any behavior. So if we're going to improve our lives, we have to start approaching things where we go, okay, I'm committed to making a change. I'm going to do it in the form of a 30-day challenge, which, that's the chapter in the book that there's a 30-day challenge with, and you get it walks you through it. And this I think is why people are so successfully implementing the Miracle Morning and changing that behavior of hitting the snooze button. It's because of this strategy. So the first 10 days unbearable. When you understand that the first 10 days are going to be unbearable and you commit, then it's not so hard. You go, well, I knew it was going to be unbearable, but I can, well, Janneke, I think we can all be honest with ourselves. If we're committed, we can do anything for 10 days, even if it's difficult, if we know that the payoff is going to be great. It's going to change our lives for the better.
Yeah,
the second 10 days are what I call the uncomfortable phase. So it's no longer unbearable, but you don't love it yet. You're kind of in the middle where you're going, gosh, I'd still rather sleep in. So you got to stay committed. The third phase is the unstoppable phase, because somewhere, usually between days 21 and 30, might happen for you on day 18. And you also, like you said, you see glimpses of it on day 3 or day 9, or it's kind of just, even in the unbearable phase, you have some days where it actually feels great. But what happens is the unstoppable phase is where the alarm goes off one day, and without even consciously thinking about it, you get up, you turn it off, you brush your teeth, you go out, you do your miracle morning, and all of a sudden it hits you, wait a minute, that was effortless. And that's why I call it the unstoppable phase, because it's not difficult to do something that you've become acclimated to, and it's become part of who you are.
Yeah, it's like brushing your teeth.
Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I started running, I was training to run a marathon. I hated running. The first 10 days were unbearable. The next 10 days were uncomfortable. About day 23, I laced up my running shoes and headed out the front door without any resistance. And when I had hated it my whole life, and as I was headed out the front door, it hit me. Whoa! Wait a minute. I'm actually doing this without any resistance. I'm looking forward to it. And I don't want to forget, I was going to mention this, and I did forget for a second, but one of the biggest tips in that chapter on overcoming the snooze button is move your alarm clock as far away from you as possible. Yeah. And this is one of the biggest hang-ups, and it's actually the reason that a few weeks ago I actually snoozed almost every day, because I was traveling and I didn't have my normal setup, and I kept forgetting to move my phone, which was my alarm clock, away from me, and it was on the bedside table. And here's the thing. If you have your phone or your alarm clock within reach, then you have to know that you're likely to reach over and turn it off, right, before you, before you even realize that it's going off. We've all been there before, where we turn our alarm clock off and go back to sleep, and we don't even realize that it went off. But if it's across the room, it forces you to wake up, get out of bed, and when you do that, it's 10 times easier to continue to stay awake when you're already upright and in the bathroom to brush your teeth.
One of the questions I got in the Facebook group was also, if you are living with a partner and he's not a morning person and you want to try the miracle morning, how did you manage that?
Wait, I'm sorry, did you say if you want them to try the miracle morning?
No, not to want them to do miracle morning.
If they don't want to do it, how do you?
They don't want to do it, but you have to set an alarm clock or something, and then they wake up at 5 or 6 or whatever time. Also, how did you manage that? Is your wife also an early riser, or what does she do?
No, she's my night owl. So I get up, I turn off the alarm, and she keeps sleeping, and I don't let that affect me. And I'll tell you, I've had the bigger question I get from a lot of people is they will start doing the miracle morning and they love it and it's changing their lives, but their significant other hasn't read the book and they don't understand, they don't get it. Yeah. And they're going, how do I get them to do it? And the reality is, well, a couple things. We are coming out with a book called The Miracle Morning for Transforming Your Relationship. And that will address how to kind of encourage your spouse to join you. But ultimately, this is really about becoming the best version of yourself so that you can be better in every area of your life. So that, if you are a spouse, you can be a better spouse because you're becoming a better version of yourself. Yeah. If you're a parent, you can be a better parent because you're becoming a better version of yourself. And that really is what this is about. We have to allow our significant other to live life as they want to live life. In fact, one of my favorite definitions of love, and it was from the book The Mastery of Love by Don Miguel Ruiz, is he said, love is wanting for another person what they truly want for themselves.
Yeah, that's great.
And so I try not to project my opinions onto my wife, but let her live life as she wants to live it, and to love her is to support her in doing that.
Will there be a Miracle Morning Master book in which each of the savers really gone into deeper?
Yeah, no, it definitely will. Miracle Morning Mastery we actually did our first Miracle Morning Mastery event a few months ago, or about 2 months ago here in the States, and that was our first, and it went really, really well. It was really amazing, and so eventually I will write a book called Miracle Morning Mastery. I'm just not sure when. I might do it on the 10-year anniversary of the original book, which, what are we? I think we're 4 years, we're about 4 years now. So, yeah, but there eventually will be. Mark my words. I just am not sure when that will become a priority.
We'll wait for that, okay. Another question, who gives you inspiration?
I try to generate it from myself. I really believe that that anything that we want in our lives, we have to own responsibility for generating it. So you hear people always say, "I wish I had more energy," and they're looking outside of themselves. I think we have to take responsibility for generating the energy, the motivation, the inspiration that we need. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't utilize other resources. So for me, I found inspiration. I try to find it in everything that I do, but I'll share with you, I think, for me, it's in serving others. That's where I find the most inspiration and the most fulfillment. And the most important people that I serve in my life are my family. It's my wife. I have a 7-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old son. And so they're a huge inspiration. And for me, I find that when I'm focused on myself and, getting the most out of every situation, or just getting in general, I find that that creates a lot of fear and scarcity and insecurity when I'm focused on myself. When I get off myself and I focus on my purpose, which is to serve others, from my family to humanity, my own insecurities and fears, they kind of disappear, because I'm not worried about me. I'm not even worried. I'm just focused on how can I help other people. And I feel like that to me is where I find the most inspiration.
Yeah, great. My daughter is also 7 and my son is 5, so they're almost from the same age.
Very cool.
Yeah. What has been your most successful moment so far?
Most successful moment so far?
Yeah.
I'll share with you the first one that comes to mind. And I think depending on how we're measuring success, we could say it was the birth of any of my children, but the one for me, when I was 20 years old, I was in that car accident, and they said I would never walk again, and I took my first step. And at that time, I was a salesperson for Cutco Cutlery. I sold high quality kitchen cutlery. At age 19 was when I started, and this was a year and a half later. Uh-huh. And when I was in the hospital, I was talking to my best friend, who also was a sales representative for Cutco, and we were on the phone. I called him when I got the news from my doctors that I was going to be released from the hospital after 7 weeks in the hospital, so a little under 2 months. And I told him the news, and he was excited, and he said, "Well, I've got to go. We've got a sales contest right now. I've got to get on the phone and make some calls and schedule some appointments." And I said, "Wow, I forgot about that, man." I said, "I was planning on, working really hard for that sales contest." And he said, "Yeah, I think you should, just worry about recovering. You don't need to worry about the, selling. You're working." And I said, "What if I did? What if I actually found a way? I get out of here in a few days, out of the hospital. What if I found a way to go on appointments and actually work and actually hit my original goal of winning?" And it's called a push period. That's what they call it, because you push yourself really hard to, see what you're capable of. And he laughed and said, "Hal, buddy, just go get better. Just, you just learned to walk again. You need to recover." And when I got off the phone with him, I just started really thinking about it, and I thought, wow, who I would have to become to accomplish, this and work in this circumstances. It's hard enough to stay motivated on any given day. I said, but the fact that I can, I have no memory, and I'm really tired all the time. I'm recovering with these broken bones. And I called my manager, who was, someone I respect very much, very good friend of mine as well. And I said, Jesse, how much sales do you think it will take to win a trophy at the conference from the push period? And he said, probably $4,000 in sales. Hal, why? And I said, you watch and see. I'm going to find a way to win a trophy at the conference. And he said the same thing my friend said. He goes, Hal, no,
you're
buddy,
out of your mind.
he said, I think that's the brain damage talking. He literally said that. And he said, just go home and rest and recover. I said, you heard what, I said, nope. I said, you heard me. I made my decision, and I hung up the phone. And long story short, it was the hardest. I got home, and my motivation that I had in the hospital, it was gone. I was exhausted. I was lethargic. I was in pain, and I couldn't get motivated. And it was a 14-day contest, and with 4 days left, my manager called me, and he said, Hal, hey, how are you? Just checking up on me. And he said, I remember you said you wanted to, work really, and win a trophy at the conference. What, how are you feeling about that? And I said, oh gosh, I'm just so tired, and it's so hard, and on and on. And he said, Hal, is this important to you? How would it feel if you did it? And I said, God, it would feel amazing, but I just can't see myself doing it. And he said, can you pick up the phone and call a few people and see if they can schedule appointments, just a few calls, and then call me back and just start really, really, really simple? I said, yeah, I don't see why not. He said, just call 3 people and let me know, call me back, let me know how it goes. I said, okay. Called the first person. They picked up the phone. They weren't interested. I said, no, we don't want to see you. And I said, okay, and got a little discouraged, and I said, all right, I committed to call 3 people. Called the second person. They didn't answer. I thought, oh man, this is pointless. Called the third person. They answered the phone. They were very nice, and they scheduled an appointment with me for the next day. And I called my manager, Jesse, back, and I said, Jesse, I got an appointment. He said, how does that feel? I said, good. He said, do you want to make more calls? I said, yes, I'm motivated. And let me just pause for a second before I tell you the rest of the story. The lesson here for anyone listening is whatever your goals are, your dreams, don't get overwhelmed by trying to think of the whole thing, how far away you are. Just think of what are the first 3 actions, or even the first action that I could take that would move me in that direction. Yeah, and if you don't know, if you go, well, I don't even know where to start, Google where to start. If you want to write a book and you go, I don't know where to start, Google how to write a book. And guess what? You'll have thousands of answers. And so I got back on the phone. I made it, and he said, Hal, make 5 more calls and call me back. I did it. I set 1 more appointment. He said, Hal, make 10 more calls, call me back. And keep a long story short, in the last 4 days, remember I needed to sell $4,000 in 14 days, and in 4 days I sold $7,000 of Cutco, and I took 4th place out of 500 sales representatives at the conference that I went to. And that was the most, I thought it was the proudest moment of my life. And, just one of the most difficult things I ever had to overcome was that physical, mental, and emotional challenges of pursuing a goal in the most difficult time in my life. And when I did it, it really felt like the most successful moment of my life.
Yeah, I could imagine that. Wow, that's really, really cool story. What are the goals for the coming months for you?
So we have our best year ever blueprint. It's our live experience. It's an event in San Diego, California, December, second weekend in December, the 9th and 10th and 11th. And if anybody wants to look into it, bestyeareverlive.com is the website. Again, www.bestyeareverlive.com. And we do have people that came from, all over the world. People fly in for it from Japan and the Netherlands and Australia, you name it, UK. And so I'm really shifting gears to focus on, on that, the event and preparing for that. But and then we have another book coming out, The Miracle Morning for Entrepreneurs, comes out in
wow, that's cool.
Of this year. Yeah, and I wrote that
an Audible version from that, an MP3.
Yes, all of the Miracle Morning books we have a narrator who's just fantastic. He has an amazing voice, and he turns all of the books into the book, or the Audible version.
Okay. Besides your own books, which book do you recommend to the listeners? So you said, whoa, that's a really cool book for entrepreneurs.
You know, for entrepreneurs, one of my favorites is The Millionaire Fast Lane. And The Millionaire Fast Lane, it is, you know, it's a little rough around the edges. There's some parts you might read, and you know, I've heard some people say they were offended, and I always say, don't get offended. Look for, you know, don't let one sentence of a book offend you when there's 1,000 more sentences that can change your life, you know. And this was a book where it really had some profound concepts that have shifted the way I approach my business and, you know, life as an entrepreneur.
And who's the author? Do you remember that?
Yeah, the author is M.J. M as in Mark, M.J. DeMarco.
Marco. Okay. Wow. Cool.
M.J. DeMarco. Yeah.
Okay. I have some final questions I have for you. What could you recommend the listeners should do the first after this podcast?
Set your alarm clock 30 to 60 minutes earlier and commit to your first miracle morning. So set your alarm clock 30 to 60 minutes earlier. I always tell people, like when I give a speech or an interview, I say, don't wait till you finish reading the Miracle Morning book to start your miracle morning. I said, all you have to do is move your alarm clock up and wake up 30 to 60 minutes earlier. And then people might say, well, what do I do during that time? I haven't read the book yet. I don't know. Well, a couple things. Number one is you can read the book during that time. So some people, their first miracle mornings are they just wake up earlier and they read the book until they get to the first S in savers, and then they learn how to apply meditation or silence. The other option is you could choose any of the savers. You know, wake up 30 minutes earlier and choose any of the savers. Do silence. Do affirmations, visualization, and some of these you may go, well, I don't know, I'm not familiar yet with some of them. Well, do the ones you're familiar with. Everyone knows how to read, right? So read a book that will help you improve your life. Everyone knows how to exercise. So you could wake up 30 minutes earlier, for example, and your first miracle mornings could be doing 15 minutes of exercise, 15 minutes of reading, or, you know, any combination of those. And but the big part of the miracle morning is waking up every morning and dedicating time to become the person that you need to be to create the success that you want in every area of your life. That's the essence of the miracle morning. In other words, it's not so much about waking up early as it is about waking up better. You know, most people wait to wake up until the last possible moment till they rush out the door. This is about waking up and creating space in the morning for you to dedicate time to your personal development so that, again, you can become a better version of yourself that is capable with the knowledge and the skills and the beliefs and the habits to achieve everything that you want in your life. And the miracle morning, you just, you know, if you're thinking, well, will this work for me? Just realize it's working for hundreds of thousands of people around the world in over 70 countries, most of which had never been able to be a morning person prior to reading the book. Definitely. And the other tip I will give you is move the alarm clock across the room. So not only set it earlier, but move it across the room so you have to get out of bed and then go straight from the alarm clock to brush your teeth, wash your face, jump in the shower, whatever you need to do to get ready for the day.
Okay, cool. Where can people find more information about you?
Go to miraclemorning.com. That's probably the best spot, miraclemorning.com. And if you want to buy the book, you know, in Dutch, you can go to the Miracle Morning, Amazon, go to your local Amazon website, and that's, I think, the best place to buy the book. Is that where you got a copy of the book?
Yeah, that's just 2 days ago. It's you can find it in the bookstores.
Oh, it is in the bookstores. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, that's true. And if people want to have a little bit extra help, there is also a Miracle Morning Facebook group, especially for Dutch people. So that's really great if we can.
Do you know what it's called? Do you know what the name of the group is called?
I write it down in the blog post, so then everybody can see it. That's really wonderful. One final question: what wise lesson would you like to share with the listeners, and then we wrap it up? Just 1 or 2 sentence.
Yes, love the life you have while you create the life of your dreams. Love the life you have now, even though it might not be perfect, because it's the only life that you have. So don't think you have to wait until you create this amazing life to start being truly happy and fulfilled. Be truly happy and fulfilled and love yourself and love your life now while you're on your journey to creating the life of your dreams.
That's really cool. Thank you very much, all, and I enjoyed this interview, and I really want to thank you.
This edition has come to an end now. Go to jannekestielstra.nl to have a look at the notes to the podcast. At the bottom of my website you will find a search bar. Type in Hal Elrod and you will find the notes of this interview. Subscribe to my podcast so you never miss an episode again. Download my free ebook now, in which I share the 7 habits of successful entrepreneurs with you. Go to jannekestielstra.nl to download the ebook immediately.